Brockhampton have quickly become the most exciting hip-hop group around in 2017. Not just in 2017, but like the biggest hip-hop group around in years. I mean, I bet you can't really name any other big hip-hop groups around right now. It's pretty much just the solo acts that are dominating in hip-hop. Of course, there are some smaller groups like Injury Reserve, Flatbush Zombies. They're all pretty great too. I suppose ASAP Mob is another one. But none of those, regardless of their quality, none of those have quite made an impact like Brockhampton. They just smashed into like the popularity of the hip hop scene earlier this year with their singles from Saturation, and then they dropped Saturation, and that was one of the most acclaimed hip hop albums of the year, including myself. This is one of my favorites right now. It would be in my top 10 favorites of the year so far. So many catchy pop rap songs. There were so many bangers on that album. It just had everything. There were R&B songs. It had a mix of everything, and never at one point did it feel like they couldn't do one style like without doing another. They could pretty much do everything. And that's because they've got so many members. I mean, every member adds to the music. No one compromises anyone else. They all have their own fair share of input, and they all do such great music and rapping and singing. It's just incredible. A small minority of people are starting to say they're overhyped, but they are really putting out music at such a rate. Like, they are prolific with their output. They are putting quality music out in such a short amount of time, and I think some people are getting a bit bored of that, but most of the fans are just excited as fuck. And with Saturation 2, they pretty much did the same thing that they did with the first Saturation. They dropped a single after single, like 3 or 4 weeks in a row, and then eventually we heard Saturation 2 come out. I'm going to address the singles first because some of these have been out quite a while now. I did do a track review on Gummy. I'm still pretty much the same on that track, even in context with this album. I think the verses are a lot better than I originally thought, though. It's just the chorus and the hook I'm not really a fan of, and that like West Coast G-Funk beat that comes in really grates on my ears. This isn't really one of my favourites that Brockhampton have ever done. I do know I'm in the minority with this song, so a lot of people love it, but honestly I do think it's one of their weakest tracks. However, luckily, and I mean luckily, they came out with some amazing singles after that, like Swamp. I absolutely fucking love this song. I love the chorus. It's such a bouncing chorus. Everything about the song, it feels nostalgic, like I don't know how, but it gives me this like 80s 90s nostalgia. I don't know how though, because it's not really a sound of that like era, but I just get that feel from the song, and it's such a great track. Junkie is another great single that they released. Kevin Abstract's verse about being gay is just incredible. I absolutely love his verse on this song. One of the best verses on the whole album, actually. I love the part where he says, "Why do you always rap about being gay?" And then he responds with, "Well, no one else is rapping about being gay." And it's so true. I mean, how many rappers out there would ever be so open about their sexuality in such a way that they would address it so much on a song and on an entire album just casually? I really love that, because I feel like that's changing hip-hop in just itself. Since Brockhampton is so influential, I feel like other rappers that come out in the future won't feel as pressured to talk about their sexuality, because we already have such an open rapper in the game, Kevin Abstract. And then let me talk about the final single, Sweet, which might be my favourite song on the whole album. Oh my god, the hook on this song is incredible. The like Eastern, kind of like Middle Eastern beat that's going on is really cool as well. I love how they incorporated that. It's such a great song, this one. It's such a unique sound. I mean, there aren't any hip-hop songs around that would go for this kind of sound, but of course Brockhampton, being as varied as they are with their ideas and sound, would release a track like this, and I absolutely love it. But now I should really address the rest of the album, because this review's already going on for quite a while, but there is so much to say. I mean, Queer, I absolutely love this track. This is the second track on the album, another track that I absolutely love. The beat, if anyone remembers the song Big Beast by Killer Mike, which if you've never heard it, you need anyway, because if you're a fan of Run the Jewels, then you should go back and listen to their individual projects. But Big Beast by Killer Mike, this beat has a very similar beat to that, and it's such a banging song. The way the instrumental like starts off crashing in, and then later in the song it slows down, like it just like it seamlessly flows along, like you wouldn't even notice. Like I don't know how they did that, but it's such a clever way to do it. The song Tokyo is another favourite of mine, mostly because of Jobber. He's becoming one of my favourite members of Brockhampton because he's so wacky with his vocals, and he honestly sounds a lot like Justin Timberlake on this song. I really like his vocals here, and then later on I do like how he references NSYNC and Justin Timberlake too on the track Sweet. Clearly such a big influence for his vocal inflections and style, but he's got such a cool voice anyway. I mean, he's got a really unique sound to him. Also, we do get another Amir Van song on the track Teeth, which he did this on Tupac, where he kind of talks about himself and his insecurities and the problems that he deals with within himself. But then on this track, Teeth, he kind of switches it up a bit, talks about the world at large and a bit of racist issues and how it's not all his fault and there are other issues too. Quite a clever flip side to the Saturation 1. I mean, I do feel like there are similarities between both. They kind of like did a lot of similar things to that album, but they've changed some things slightly. You can tell that it's all linked, and this is gonna all come together once this becomes a huge trilogy. Similarities include the skits. I mean, except this time there aren't as many skits on this one, which sort of works a little bit better. I do feel like the weakest element of Saturation was the skits, but on this time we don't get as many, which is good. But I do have to admit that there are a few songs that I'm not really that big of a fan of on this one, which would probably make me say that I prefer Saturation 1 to this, which might be controversial because a lot of people have said so far that this has topped number 1. Not really all that into Chick. I mean, it kind of has a bit of a messy sounding beat for me. As I've already said, I wasn't really a fan of Gummy either. Jesus is an okay track, I guess. Not really that exciting. Can't say I'm all that big of a fan of Gamba either. I mean, the auto-tune vocals on that one irritate me slightly too. Doesn't feel like it has anywhere near the amount of substance of some of the tracks on this album, especially considering just a few tracks before we get the track Fight, where Amir Van comes in again talking about racism and quite a heavy topical song, and how there's always this big fight with the world at large. But unfortunately Gamba doesn't really add to the album for me. And the track following that isn't really that great of a track either. I mean, it does remind me of some of the hooks on their first album, like, not the first album, but the first Saturation, with songs like Fake. Like, it kind of has that similar kind of like auto-tuned hook, but this time it doesn't quite work as well for me. So I guess to sum up really just the tracks that I don't like, there are way more on this album than there were on Saturation 1, which isn't an issue. I mean, I'm still really excited about some of my favourite songs on this one. There are definitely some of their best songs they've ever made on here, like Sweet and Swamp especially, and Queer. Oh, and the closing track is absolutely beautiful as well. They did this on the first Saturation. That was one of my favourites on there too, with an amazing vocal performance. And they've done it here too with Summer, and the guitar. Oh man, when that guitar comes in, it just sounds absolutely blissful. Such a beautiful way to end an album. I mean, I was absolutely in awe of that song when it came on. As a closing track, it just perfectly finishes off an album. Yeah, I love this track, Summer. So yeah, this is a pretty good album. I do really enjoy it actually, but it's just so many tracks that I just felt like could have been better. So it is weaker than Saturation 1 for me. I'm excited for Saturation 3. It is coming out pretty soon, so it's almost like we're getting a lot of albums in a short amount of time. But the thing is with Brockhampton, they can produce quality and they can make good music in a short amount of time, so I'm excited. Let me know what you think of this album. I'm going to grade this album a B. Brockhampton, the most exciting hip-hop group around right now. Make sure you listen to them if you never have. And subscribe to the channel for more reviews. And have a good day.